Welcome. I'm Ana Boa-Ventura. I'm a consultant for Renaissance Entrepreneurship Center, and this is our session 1B, so second class of Marketing, Sales, and Public Relations. Let me start by sharing my screen. I want to make sure you'll see me at the bottom right of your screen as I share my slides. We're going to talk about the elements of a compelling origin story and also story frameworks. Worksheet is still worksheet 1, just like the session 1A, to focus on that journey from the why to the wow. So session 1A was about identifying your why, and today we're going to talk about that journey that takes us from the why to the wow. So the goals of session 1, including 1A and 1B, are to understand the power of storytelling in business, which we covered in session 1A, and to learn the key elements of a brand origin story, to explore frameworks like hero's journey and story brand, which we'll see today, these two topics. And then number 4 will be to draft your own story based about paragraph or a video script, okay? And that will be an exercise that you will have your worksheet to guide you through. So in this session 1B today, this video, our goals are to learn the key elements of a brand origin story, explore frameworks like hero's journey and story brand. This, as I said, this number 4 will be covered on your worksheet 1. So let's focus on these topics 2 and 3, brand origin story and story frameworks. And our journey in this video will start with awakening that why. We talked about it on the last session, finding the human story, understanding story architecture, how a story can be organized or should be organized, mapping the customer as hero, and designing stories that really move us. Every brand has a story. This is the most important thing. We talked about story brand on session 1A. The difference is that some just tell it better than others, right? I want you to reflect a little, take a moment and think about the brand that you love. What's the story? What's their story? What's the story behind them? Take a moment, it's a video, you can pause and think about it. Choose a brand that you're really passionate about and think about the story behind them. I'll let you think about that a little bit. Feel free to take your notes, and I will press on. Why do stories matter in marketing? We'll look at this on session 1A, right? Stories are 22 times more memorable than facts alone. And this is a number that's sometimes contested. It was published first by the Harvard Business Review. Some people say, where does this 22 times comes from? Well, a study done somewhere at some time, right? But this is the number generally accepted, the factor that makes stories really much more memorable than facts alone. And do you remember Rokia, right? We talked about this on session 1A, just telling the story of Rokia, showing her picture and saying that she could not attend school because her family had no food, was so much more impactful in terms of the donations that the nonprofit achieved than saying that 11 million people in her country were in a state of hunger. Right? And stories drive emotion that leads to trust, and trust leads to loyalty. It's just what's a brand origin story? It's a narrative that explains why your business exists, not just what you sell. So do you remember the golden circle that we talked about in the last session? So it's about founding the founding spark of your business. So it's about how you found that spark, the values in action, and the human struggle or insight behind the idea. So you remember the golden circle, right? Simon Sinek, we talked about his book. Do you remember his golden circle? The what, the how, and the why. How all of us know what we do, what we sell, what services we offer. Some of us know the how, and then very few of us know the why. He claims, Simon, that in fact, the amazing brands, the successful ones, start with the why. So always start with your why. This is what we're saying here. So the brand origin story, it's a narrative that explains not only why your business, not only what you sell, but why your business exists. We talked about, and I'm just re-examining some points of a last session, the emotional power of origin stories. Stories that create relatability. They are like me. Oh, this brand is like me. Builds trust. They get me. Okay, I buy an Apple computer because it's different, it's beautiful. And so Apple gets me. Sparks loyalty. I believe in what they stand for. They stand for originality, creativity that has everything to do with me. I'm giving you an example, actually, the example that Simon Sinek gives in his TED Talk, which we watched the video on session Y about. So you remember him, right? This is not Simon Sinek, but this illustration symbolizing really this idea of going from relatability, trust, clarity, and then this I like you as a brand situation, right? Which we all want as a business. So the key ingredients of a strong origin story, okay, a strong one, is if we think, I'm going to ask you to focus on this last column here. So let's start with the example of Patagonia, okay? So one of their taglines, they have several, but one of their main ones is, we're in business to save our home planet, okay? So the ingredient here is purpose, and the question is, why do you exist? We're in business to save our home planet. So it's a very clear, here we go, clarity statement, right? Airbnb focus on we couldn't pay rent. So if we couldn't pay rent, let's rent some of our rooms. It's really focused here on the person who is offering the services of Airbnb rather than the customer who is looking for a house to rent as a Airbnb. So we couldn't pay rent. So the ingredient was the spark. And what moment started it all? Right? It was the moment when they could not pay rent, and they thought, okay, how about renting our space to others. The Warby Parker that we talked about in session 1A, glasses were too expensive. So the ingredient, we can call it a challenge. The question was, what obstacle shaped your mission? By the way, the CEOs of Warby Parker, 5 guys, are all wear glasses, right? And at some point, they realized that to have quality eyewear that was also beautiful to look, I mean, aesthetic and of quality, was just too expensive and also too cumbersome to have to go to the store and try the glasses, so they come up with their model that I succinctly described on session 1A. Anyway, ingredient, challenge, question, what obstacle shaped your mission? Classes were too expensive. If we think about Dove, okay, and we talked about it also on session 1A, one of their taglines is real beauty comes in all forms, right? Okay, so the ingredient here is value, and the question was, what was the belief that drove you? What belief drives you? And the belief was that real beauty comes in all forms. And finally, Netflix, from DVD mailings, do you remember those? We would get those in the mail, right? To streaming giant. So the ingredient here was the transformation. The question was, how have you grown? And in their case, from those awful and very inconvenient DVD mailings to streaming giant. Okay, so here are some key ingredients of strong origin stories. Patagonia, Airbnb, Warby Parker, Dove, and Netflix, all of these had different ingredients like purpose, spark, challenge, value, transformation. Okay. Let's look at a brand that a lot of us love, Ben and Jerry's. By the way, again, this image was AI generated in Canva, and I was surprised that Canva actually knew the logo of Ben and Jerry's, so no problem there. So this was not a collage made by me; it was all completely generated on Canva. Anyway, going back to our topic of the product brand of Ben and Jerry's. It started in a renovated gas station. The mission was really social justice, but also good ice cream. If it's not fun, why do it? So there's a consistency of values here. This is between quotation marks because this is what the founders of Ben and Jerry's, Ben and Jerry, would say about their brand, right? If it's not fun, why do it? So many of us will identify ourselves with these type of values, right? And then there's that moment of I like you as a brand, right? Let's look at another brand. The other one was a product brand. This is a service brand, Headspace. The co-founder burned out as a sports marketer, and he became a monk. So there was a moment in his life that was fundamental, right? It's really Headspace is a brand that's a story about mindfulness that was born from a personal need of this particular co-founder. So it's an authentic founder story, and that's really the emotional anchor. We really feel that this person who founded the brand is transformed himself. He became a monk and started this app, really, Headspace for mindfulness. It's an app that helps you meditate and is along the lines of mindfulness, if you are familiar with that concept. So this makes us trust the brand. And then that moment, I like you as a brand. Let's look at another brand, a nonprofit with a social impact, Charity Water. And this brand was started by Scott Harrison, who was like a nightlife promoter at nightclubs and things like that, and who became a humanitarian. So this is quite a transformation, right? Every story starts with the thirst. This is a quote by Scott Harrison. And I'll show you, I will not play that video, but you'll have a video that you can watch to kind of get to know him a little better. Here he is. You've got the URL link, and as always, you can stop this video that you're watching at any point and go check out Scott Harrison's personal story. It's really inspirational, and the brand is Charity, Water. And as you can imagine, it's all about making water available in countries that are lacking it. A small business brand, let's go local again. We talked about Oaklandish in session 1A. We saw that it was a brand rooted in civic pride. Let's bring the values of the city of Oakland that's so highly criticized in the media for gun violence, for this and that. Let's really focus on the resilience of this city. Let's celebrate Oakland, right? So it's rooted in civic pride. From street art to apparel with purpose, you literally wear that pride on your chest, like as a t-shirt. It's all about streetwear. So local authenticity turned into global resonance, and we saw the co-founder, right? Actually, I'm sorry, the founder, and let's say, here she is. Pitfalls to avoid when you are building, because this is all about crafting your business story, right? Your brand story. Pitfalls to avoid that make people yawn and sleep is too much about us, right? Don't focus too much about your company. No, there's no emotional hook. There's an inconsistent tone or visuals. Very often I see brands that mix cartoonish imagery with real photos, and anyway, it's all over the place. Consistency of colors as well. It's also inconsistent on our visuals. So these are pitfalls to avoid, and instead make the customer feel part of the journey, right? That makes the customer happy and really trust your brand. So as you're thinking about your brand, and again, I'm totally aware that some of you are starting a business, or maybe you're already have it going, or as you craft your brand story, think of the pitfalls to avoid, and to really make that customer feel part of the journey that you went through or are going through. So take a moment and think of your own brand. This is and again, a moment for you to stop this video and think about your own brand. What inspired the business that you're starting? Why did you decide to start this particular one and not a different one? What problem does or did it want to solve when you started it, or when now that you're about to start it? And what will change, what has already changed as a result? Okay, so think a little bit about this, because this is part of your origin story, right? And now we really, I guess, start talking about what goes on in our brains as we are told a story. Okay, could be in a movie, could be somebody's reading it out loud to us. Maybe we are reading a book ourselves, or we listening to a friend of ours telling something that happened to them yesterday or last week. Okay. Well, the funny thing here is that for that story to be impactful and really get your attention, it follows what's called a story arc. And this is as old as millenniums, because I don't mean the generation, I mean it has thousands of years, because this idea of exposition followed by a rising action, followed by the climax of the story, and then a falling action and a resolution, which is called the story arc. And it really means, you can translate this into an inspiration that becomes a challenge, then there's an insight, a breakthrough, and then the impact. This is another way to think in terms of these 5 stages of the story arc. Okay, well, guess what? This idea started with Aristotle. So a little old, right? That's how old it is. And then a German guy by the name of Gustav Frey, he materialized it in this diagram you're seeing. I bet it was written in German at the time, because it was in 1863 in his book Technique of the Drama. Okay, so everything that we're going to talk about in the next slides actually has this as the foundational base, and it's as old as Aristotle. Okay, it's the story arc, which we can translate as these 5 stages into inspiration, followed by challenge, followed by insight. The insight is the climax, right? Followed by the breakthrough, the falling action, and the impact, which is the resolution. Okay, so keep this in mind. Come back to this slide when you need. And these are the 5 stages of storytelling according to Freitag. Okay, 1863 Aristotle, and then visualized in 1863 by Freitag. Is this ringing a bell? Heisenberg? Yeah, well, guess what? The story arc is a recipe for great storytelling. Remember him? Yeah, well, I'm not going to read all of this, but I can tell you this was the story arc behind Breaking Bad. And it was called The Mountain Climb and Fall. It starts with exposition, gives context, establishes setting, introduction of the main characters, right? Walter and his wife, his son, etc., etc. And there's a first climax, there's a second climax, there's a third climax, catastrophe, complete destruction of former life through fatal flaw, and then there's the resolution. Okay, so again, a movie that all of us have seen, and probably a lot of us have loved and still do, following that story arc. You've got, by the way, the source of this diagram indicated here, if you're curious about it. And a lot of marketers out there argue that this story arc that we've been describing is actually also pivotal for your social media strategy. Okay. So, as you're posting on Facebook and Instagram, instead of posting left and right when it feels or you feel like doing it, you should follow a strategy that actually is very, very, very connected to the story arc. Um, and this is the book by Keith Quesenberry, where this is really explained. And I'm not going to read all of this, but again, as you work with your social media strategy, you have an exposition, the brand history, the mission, the industry, the competitors, the target audience. Then there is a rising action conflict, like we saw on the story arc, right? There's a problem, an opportunity, a business objective, a social audit, and then the climax, the big idea, the strategic solution that your brand offers, and then the falling action, and then the resolution, right? So does your social media plan tell a story, is what Keith asks. And these stories are better developed in his book, Social Media Strategy, that I highly recommend. And actually there's a fourth edition. So if you're going to invest your money on Amazon or some other platform of booksellers, you might as well go with the fourth session, Marketing, Advertising, and Public Relations in the Consumer Revolution, Social Media Strategy. And here, really, Keith contends, he defends this idea that, yes, there is a story arc, or there should be one as you plan out your social media strategy. And the whole idea here is this: great stories aren't random, they follow a structure. So at this point, I want to introduce story frameworks. We talked about the importance of the origin story, okay? It was the first part of this presentation. And now we're going to start talking about story frameworks. And there are story frameworks that sell and others that don't. Let's focus on three types of frameworks that really sell. One is called the hero's journey. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's emotional, it's cinematic. It's by the way, the one that the producers of Breaking Bad followed. There's the story brand, and there's one that is often called the PST framework: problem, solution, transformation. And this one is simple and commercial. So let's look at these three. And this is the hero's journey is in a way the most complex, but it will be so much easier if I start talking about hero's journey, because I'll see that the story brand and the PST framework are kind of results of or variations of the hero's journey. Okay. And in all three of these frameworks, the idea is that structuring your story leads to clarity, and you need clarity to get that "I like you" moment from your leads, from your potential customers, right? So in essence, a story framework, it's our hero's journey in this case. It's a timeless story pattern in which a hero embarks on an adventure, gains new wisdom through experience, triumphs using that insight, and returns home transformed. So the whole purpose is to evoke emotion and illustrate transformation. Here we're talking about story framework one, hero's journey. Okay, as I said, it's the most complex, but I need to start with this one. So let's think about some of the brands that we talked about. Every great brand story follows a path, and one that mirrors the timeless hero's journey, or at least these do, right? Others may follow closely other frameworks that we're going to talk about, but the key here with the hero's journey is that, and I asked you to please think in these terms, because a mistake I see often in this type of workshops is that you see yourself, the brand, as the hero. No, your customer is the hero, and you the brand, the business that you're starting or that you already have are the guide. Okay, so keep this in mind as we walk through these diagrams and examples. Customer is the hero. So I warned you, it's a complex diagram, but let's focus on the important part here. The hero's journey includes this allusion to the ordinary world and the unknown world. And we go from, I'm not going to tell you all 17 steps, but we go from the departure with call to adventure, the refusal of the call, and then something that it's called a supernatural aid, which will allow you to cross the threshold between the ordinary world and the unknown world. And you continue until you, the point 16, master of the two worlds, and then freedom to live. If you find this lingo very like Lord of the Rings kind of thing, you would be right, because it is very close to it. The person who really formalized it, he did not invent the hero's journey, let's put it that way, but he popularized this idea of the hero's journey, and he formalized it in a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, and called this journey the monomyth. Not surprisingly, Joseph Campbell was a mythologist. That was his profession. And the book was written in 1949. Guess what? I have a little trivia to share with you. George Lucas actively followed this structure when making Star Wars. So if any of you wants to see that amazing movie again, and try to identify the 17 stages of the hero's journey, they're all there. George Lucas followed it religiously. You've got the source of the diagram here, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, story arc, as it's called, okay? So fortunately for us, others like Gerald Friel have simplified it. And here you see these very obvious two worlds, right? The ordinary and the special one. I'm calling this the hero's journey for marketers, because the special world is what you allow your customers to have access to, thanks to your brand, to the business, to the products or services that you are offering through your brand, you as the guide, as the mentor. So let's look at the hero's journey from a marketer's point of view. You start here, your customer starts with the ordinary world. There's a call to adventure, a refusal of the call, a meeting the mentor or the guide, you, the brand, the business. Then your potential customer crosses that threshold, meets, tests, allies, enemies, and approach to the inmost cave, the ordeal, the reward, the road back, the resurrection, and he returns with the elixir. And we'll see this in a real life example, okay? But this is like a translation of the very complex hero's journey diagram in terms of marketing, okay? So the hero's journey, what we're going to do now is we're going to use the hero's journey story framework to describe an actual marketing example where the customer is the hero and you, the brand, let's think it's a recruiting company, is the guide, okay? So it's a real life example if you want, and I'm representing that recruiting company with just like a general logo. Let's call it this, okay? So let's think of this guy. He's really bored. He's got a little lanyard, right, saying stuff. So he's at work, so bored. And this is the ordinary world. It's a familiar world. It's your audience's current reality, your potential customers' current reality, routines, frustrations, unmet desires, okay? This is what this guy's really bored. I mean, do I really want this job? He's thinking, right? And then there's a spark, a challenge. Maybe he's getting married. He needs to increase that paycheck. Maybe there's a pain point. Maybe there's a new possibility, right? The hero, your potential customer, senses there's more waiting beyond that ordinary world, okay? There was a spark. And then there's the refusal of the call. He acknowledges hesitation. Yeah, change is amazing, is exciting, but it's also a little scary, right? Well, he, in this case, he meets the mentor, the brand as a guide. At some point, and I'm just, of course, simulating a possible situation here, he sees this website of the company, the recruiting company that I'm illustrating here with this red logo. And the brand steps in as a mentor, as a guide, as an ally, offering empathy, wisdom, and tools for the journey ahead. Okay. Maybe he sees this on a website, maybe a Facebook ad that is triggered as he's checking his Facebook, which he shouldn't during work, but whatever it is, he meets this company, the recruiting company that becomes then this guide, right? And how? Well, then he crosses that threshold between his ordinary world and his, world full of opportunities that the brand offers. The customer commits. Maybe there's a 7-day free trial to register with this recruiting company. Puts the name, the email, the experience, the desired role, uploads the resume and submits. This is the leap. It's that first yes to transformation, this possible freedom from that ordinary world, right? But still, there are tests, there are allies, there are enemies, there are real life challenges that appear. Maybe he doubts himself. What if I can't do it? Well, I haven't had a raise in 20 years. So what? Maybe I should just stay here where I am. But the brand stays close, supporting, guiding, and cheering them on. In marketing terms, this could be a newsletter that the guy signed up to when he registered with the recruiting company, and now they keep sending them emails, and suggest, believe in yourself, you can do this, right? And the hero is near the transformation. One last big test awaits. Maybe the recruiting company is sending an email saying, hey, your free trial with us expires tomorrow. Sign up today. Sign up with that yearly or monthly plan with us, right? So I'm skipping some steps here for the sake of time, but finally, there's the return with the elixir. The hero signs up to that yearly or monthly plan, and then they go to Facebook and Instagram. They share their success. They go to Yelp. They give an amazing review. They go to Google and they give a 5-star review. Their story inspires others, and the cycle begins again. Okay, so here's like a marketing interpretation of that hero's journey, of that diagram, simplified diagram that we saw. And don't read this yet. So each of these stages can take many forms. And this is an example of an email that can leverage that return with the elixir, where I'm going to announce to others, share my success. This is an email I received 6 hours after I followed a webinar. Okay, so I received this 6 hours after webinar. And on this email, the person who gave the webinar says, Anna, I have a favor to ask. If you enjoy the workshop, could you please leave a testimonial or a review about what you got out of the workshop? Okay, and you notice that, he addresses me by the name because, of course, when I filled in the registration form, I was asked for my first name. So he's personalizing the email. With that, he's increasing my trust in this brand of this consulting firm. And then he's asking me to, the return with the elixir, like leave a testimonial. He also tells me it should take 3 minutes and can be done by clicking here. And this is the same link, takes me to the same place where he's asking me for a video testimonial that I can record myself, or a testimony. Okay. So in terms of marketing that hero's journey, each of those stages can take many forms. In this case, an email symbolizing that return with the elixir. Okay. Illustrating the return with the elixir. Better said. So for marketers, hyper simplify, the hero's journey becomes the hero, your customer, meets a call to adventure. He's still in the ordinary world, right? Has a challenge, and you show up as the brand. You are the guide, right? So the brand doesn't save the hero, it equips them for the transformation they're going to get away from that ordinary world and get to the special world allowed by the services offered by the brand, the product offered by the brand. So it's a circular path. So it's like a simplified hero's journey. The hero, the customer, is your audience. It's not your company, it's your audience. Okay. The customer begins in their ordinary world, experiencing life as usual until they encounter a challenge or problem, which could be their pain point, right? Or like I was suggesting earlier, maybe they getting married. The guy was getting married and needed an increase on their paycheck, find a new job where he would get a better paycheck. Whatever it is, they find a challenge or a problem. This is when they feel a call to adventure, the motivation to seek change or improvement, and that's about when the brand steps in as the guide, not the hero. You are the guide. You don't save them, you equip them. How? You offer tools, wisdom, solutions that empower the customer to overcome their challenge. And so once the customer accepts the guide's help, and in terms of marketing, this means buying, subscribing to some plan like we illustrated with a recruiting company, join some program, they move toward the transformation. And the transformation is the desired outcome or new state, confidence, simplicity, peace of mind, success. Imagine that, and it's my case, you're sitting in front of your computer for hours and hours, and you feel a back pain. There's this challenge. You need a transformation in your life. You don't want this back pain. Well, you sign up for an app that signals every 2 hours that you must stand up and walk around. In fact, there is an app that does exactly that. There's always an app for that, right? So there was a challenge, my back pain, and now this app shows up in my life as a guide that will allow me a transformation in my life. I now, every 2 hours, it beeps, it tells me to stand up and walk around the house, and I get transformed. I no longer have a back pain. And then I go back, the return of the elixir, to share with others the success that I just had. And the circle begins again with others, with other potential customers. Let's now talk about, we've finished with the hero's journey, but it was so important because the other two story frameworks, the story brand and the PST, are so related to the hero's journey. Because just listen what the story brand story framework is. In essence, it's a storytelling framework that positions the customer as the hero and the brand as the guide, helping them identify a problem, offering a clear plan, calling them to action, and showing how success can transform their story. So very rooted in the hero's journey, kind of simplified, right? And the purpose of the story brand framework is to clarify messaging and drive action. So you have a diagram representing it. A character with a problem meets a guide who gives them a plan and calls them to action that results in success or failure, of course. If success, then the client, the character, will share it with the world, right? So it's a modern simplification of the hero's journey, really. And the guy behind it is Donald Miller. He designed it to help companies clarify their message. So here there was already a purpose that was very business-driven, right? It's a hero's journey distilled into 7 marketing-friendly steps that you see here, these 7 steps. A character, the customer, has a problem, meets a guide, it's the brand, who gives them a plan, calls them to action that helps them avoid failure and ends in success, okay? So the focus is the brand message, has to be clear, simple, and has to be centered in the audience. And in short, story brand is the hero's journey, but translated into business language. So in a way, it's even easier to adapt to our marketing concerns and strategies that we're looking for. And finally, the third and last story framework we'll look at is the problem solution transformation, also called as PST. Our story framework number 3 and last one. Let's look at the example we saw on the last session, 1A, about Warby Parker. This is a Warby Parker ad. And in this case, the PST, problem, solution, transformations, is focused on this first column. How can we translate this in terms of marketing? The problem is the pain point. The solution is what the brand offers, and the transformation is the result, the feeling, right? So again, we saw what the pain point was a few slides back. Classes are too expensive. The solution is buy one, give one. There's also a mission here. When you buy one, you give somebody need another pair of glasses. And the transformation is you see clearly and you give back. That's actually a tagline of Warby Parker. It's pretty good, right? See clearly, because it is about eyewear, but give back. You are helping somebody in need as when you buy a pair of glasses. Very, very much like the Tom's shoes mission as well, and values. Here's another brand, Nike. Find your greatness. The hero, the athlete is you, right? Hero is the athlete, your customer in this case. The call is just do it. This you, by the way, I'm not addressing you as the brand, I'm addressing as the customer. The call is just do it, the challenge, the personal limits, and the guide Nike gives tools and inspiration. This is probably not the body type that you'd expect on something that says find your greatness, because it's all about the challenge your personal limits. Nike gives you tools and inspiration. So the transformation is the achievement and the confidence. Again, that idea of the PST, right? Airbnb. Here, the idea is kind of very creative. Fund your dreams, become a host on Airbnb. Of course, Airbnb has as customers two types of people: the ones who actually rent their houses, and the ones who are looking for a house to rent for holidays or to stay for a week while they're going to concerts, whatever it is. Two types of audiences, right? And this ad, which is an actual Airbnb ad, focuses on attracting those who are hosts for Airbnb. And in this case, it says the subheading reads, start hosting on Airbnb in San Diego and earn a 200 cash bonus. And there's a link to go to, terms and conditions apply. But here, the, I guess, hidden line is that you can fund your dreams of becoming a movie director by becoming a host on Airbnb. So hero is a traveler seeking connection. The problem are cold, impersonal hotels, right? And the solution is stay like a local. The transformation is meaningful experiences you will have. So again, PST, problem, solution, transformation. You've got the source here, Airbnb ad. And with Peloton, that brand didn't go so well. Anyway, the tagline being motivation that moves you. The hero, everyday person seeking motivation. The guide, instructors, community. And finally, the transformation, the strength, and this feeling of belonging, right? So again, that idea of the PST framework. This is actually a Peloton TV. It's a screenshot of that TV, and you've got the source here. So problem, solution, transformation framework, also known as PST. The problem, clunky video. This for the brand of Zoom, for the Zoom brand. The problem was clunky video meetings, right? With tons of technical problems along, communication problems. Well, the solution, seamless connection, and the transformation, teams stay human and productivity is increased. With Canva, and this was an AI generated image. By the way, this was also an AI generated image. Canva, the problem was design tools are too complex. Solution, let's do a drag and drop kind of system here through an interface like Canvas, right? Transformation, anyone can design. You don't have to be a professional designer because you're really using templates that were created by designers. So transformation, anyone can design. So if I want to summarize what's happening with hero's journey, this is the diagram, fundamental, this idea of the ordinary world and the special world that your brand or your business allow the hero to experience, right? The origin myth of storytelling frameworks, very much Lord of the Rings kind of thing. And now you know that George Lucas used this framework for his Star Wars. Comes from Joseph Campbell's The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And there's a narrative archetype which sage like call to adventure, meeting the mentor, the brand, ordeal, and then return with the elixir. That's when you're going to tell the world how successful you were and the transformation caused in your life by meeting the brand, the business. The focus is the human transformation arc, emotional and universal. And in marketing, the customer is the hero, the brand is the guide. Keep that in mind. Okay, we also saw another story framework. This hero's journey is cinematic, is emotional, is ideal for big storytelling, for films, for about pages, for keynote narratives. So guess what? Yes, Breaking Bad was very inspired by this hero's journey. Then we saw the story brand framework. And in here, what happens is that Donald Miller adapted the hero's journey to business. And so he's talking about this idea of a character, the customer with a problem meets a guide, the brand, the business, who gives them a plan and calls them to action that results in either in failure or success. And of course, the whole idea here being that the brand or business tries to keep the character away from failure and towards success, right? And finally, we saw the problem solution transformation framework that can be represented this way. And the ultra condensed version compresses the storytelling arc into 3 beats: the problem, the solution, and the transformation. Problem, what the customer is struggling with; the solution, what your brand offers; and the transformation, who the customer becomes after success, who the customer becomes after success. Okay, so the focus in the PST framework is really the marketing copy and the campaign messaging, short, practical, easy to use in ads, email, and landing pages. It's really the ultra condensed version of that hero's journey. Think of PST as the elevator pitch version of the story brand. You have 30 seconds, you're with somebody on an elevator, you've got to kind of transform story brand into this idea of there's a problem, there's a solution that leads to a transformation. Okay. So how the hero's journey, the story brand, and the PST story frameworks relate? These were the three story frameworks that we talked about today: the hero's journey, the story brand, and the PST. This way. So let's look here. You've got the framework here on the first column. You've got the focus of each on the second column. Hero's journey, the focus is the transformation through trials. The story brand is clear customer-centered story arc. And the PST framework is this problem, solution, result, or transformation, if you want clarity. Who's the hero? Well, in the hero's journey, it's the founder, the character, and under the story brand and the PST framework, it is the customer. It's really always the customer, right? The complexity, wow, the hero's journey with 12 stages, sometimes 17 stages if you take into account that first diagram we saw by Joseph Campbell. Quite high, right? Story brand, medium, it's got only 7 stages, and PST framework, really simple with 3 parts. So if you take into account this complexity, well, hero's journey is really best for deep brand storytelling, origin stories. It's followed by in movies, right? So those movies like Star Wars, like Breaking Bad, they do follow those 12 or 17 stages of the hero's journey. The story brand is best for brand messaging, websites, campaigns, and finally the PST framework, problem solution transformation, is best for, well, because it's abridged, it's simplified, it's best for quick pitches, for videos, for posts, for headlines. Okay? So feel free to stop the video at this point and see and really look at what each one of them is best for. So take a moment and pick a brand, yours or maybe a famous brand that you are passionate about, and map it on either framework. So and then reflect on this for 3 minutes. If you choose to go with the hero's journey, it will probably take you more than 3 minutes, but pick a brand and really try to map it on either framework. Or feel free to go with the story brand or the PST framework if you don't want to spend a lot of time on this. If you pick your brand, wonderful, because as you're thinking about this exercise, you're kind of going deep into that idea of crafting your brand story, which is absolutely fundamental. Okay, and you'll see all of this on your worksheet 1. So common mistakes, and because there are common mistakes, I'm identifying them here because I want you to avoid them. Brand as hero instead of a guide. No, you brand business, you're not the hero, you're the guide. Okay. Maybe you're missing the why. Maybe there's no transformation at the end. And if you overly polish this, it will be less believable. So don't over polish your framework. How will your next story make someone feel different about your brand? That's really the important stuff, right? What is your brand offering your customer that will cause this transformation in their lives, right? So key takeaways from session 1 really about stories is that stories connect hearts before they sell solutions. The emotional part is hyper important. They follow a clear, meaningful path. In fact, you've got 3 story frameworks to choose from. They're all paths, they're all story arcs, right? And they stay true to their beginnings, to the origin story, brand story. It's absolutely fundamental to think about those origins. Stories stay true to their beginnings. So here are the key takeaways of session 1A and session 1B. Okay, on session 1A, really focused on the importance of storytelling for business, and on this session 2B, we covered 2 aspects, and they were the brand, the origin stories, right, and the 3 types of story frameworks. Okay. Take a moment or two, reserve 2 hours for this exercise, and you'll find it on your worksheet 1. And this is that 4th and last point of this session 1B. Remember, draft your own story-based about paragraph, maybe for your website, or a video script for a future social media campaign. Keep in mind the 3 story frameworks you learned today. Choose the most appropriate for your case, okay? So maybe you're working on your website. You'll need that about us paragraph, right? So draft your own story-based about us paragraph, or then if you've got a video script coming up for an Instagram reel or whatever it is, or for a future social media campaign, draft exactly that video script. And while doing that, keep in mind the 3 story frameworks: the hero's journey, the story brand, and the PST, problem solution transformation, and choose the most appropriate for your case. And you'll find this on your worksheet 1. Okay. So the next topic will be on session 2, mapping your ecosystem. Here we'll be talking about ecosystem mapping, who surrounds your audience, partner types, strategic allies, influencers, or referral partners, and the value exchange, the so-called WIFM, what's in it for me. And I thank you. A little illustration to remind you of the simplified diagram of the hero's journey translated to marketing. Thank you for watching. Now go work on that about paragraph or your video script about your existing or maybe a business that you are starting. That's all on worksheet 1. And this session 1B was about the journey from why to wow. Thank you for watching.